Thank you, Mr. Hand, and good morning, everyone. Well, I hope you're having a great feast like we are in this beautiful area. God set this feast in truly a prime place where you can see all the mountains, all the beauty of His creation. And certainly we appreciate it. I want to speak today about the most important subject in the world. In fact, the most important subject in the universe. Our salvation depends upon it. No one will be in the kingdom without it. Let's let the captain of our salvation tell us about this most important subject in Matthew 22 and verse 36. Matthew 22, verse 36. We'll pick it up in verse 35, where he is asked a question which directly hits at this subject. Where it says, "Then one of them, a lawyer, asked him a question, testing him and saying, 'Teacher, which is the great commandment in the law?' And Jesus said to him, 'You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind.'" Now notice, Jesus didn't hesitate at all. He responded immediately. He didn't say, "Well, that's a good question," or "Let me think about that." This has been on his mind since the Old Testament, you see. He said it in the Old Testament, and he said it again here. So, this is the most important subject that we could ever talk about. As I said, no one will be in the kingdom without it. The number one and the number two commandment, which follows, and he says in verse 38, "This is the first and great commandment, and the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself." Now notice what he says to emphasize the fact in verse 40. He says, "On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets." In other words, if we don't do these two, we might as well forget all the rest, because these two are what are going to be the most important commandments for all eternity. Solomon says there is a time to love and a time to hate. This is in Ecclesiastes 3 and verse 8. Many sermons could be given on this topic, but in this short sermonette, we only have time to remind ourselves that this is what needs to be the foremost thing in our thinking and in our worship of God. All year long, we watch the news of the world. That is the time to hate all the sins that are perpetrated by Satan. You know, we see it on the news every evening. Issues about gay marriage, random murders because the murderer thought it might be thrilling to kill someone, beheadings, abortions, selling baby parts so that some doctor can buy a Ferrari. And they're laughing and joking about that. And everywhere you look, there is corruption, from the highest office in the land right on down through, the local officials. God says, "Come out of her, my people, and be not partakers of her sins." And so we have come out of her for 8 days. At the feast, we are as separated from the world as we can ever be in this lifetime. We are at the place that God chose with the people God has called. Now, how do we love the Lord our God with all our heart and all our soul and all our mind? Well, we can do this ourselves or within our physical family and also within the church family. And certainly when we do it together, it is, of course, the most thrilling. We are told not only to do this, but to teach it to our children. Turn over to Deuteronomy 6 and verse 5, which we've heard several times this feast. And incidentally, we've had many very fine messages this feast. And after some 48 years, we need reminding year after year of what God wants us to do. Deuteronomy 6 and verse 5 says, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And these," now notice what it says here, "and these words which I command you today shall be in your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house and when you walk by the way, when you lie down and when you rise up." In other words, how much can God emphasize the fact that we need to be doing this? Now consider the awesome creation God has made and the infinite power and wisdom and love with which He rules it, revealed by, as we heard yesterday, the Hubble telescope. The Hubble telescope. You know, many libraries have DVDs which you can check out and see the universe through the Hubble telescope. The Moody Science Institute has one out that's very good, and it's called Journey to the Edge of Creation. And it shows it's as if we're in a spaceship and we're going to travel at the speed of light. And it shows us taking off, and we pass the moon in about 1.5 seconds. We pass the sun in 8 minutes. And then it tells you how long it takes to get out of our solar system, and then how long it takes to get, out of our Milky Way galaxy and so on. It's very interesting. I'd suggest that if you have a chance, check those out of the library. It doesn't cost you anything, and you can watch it. It's very thrilling. Well, amid all the vastness of the universe, God has tailored the beautiful, comfortable little earth as a home for His children. We need to, in order to truly appreciate and to truly love God, we need to look for His miracles all around us. A lot of them are hidden miracles. For example, He makes dirt, He makes water, and from those two ingredients, He forms everything we eat and everything we rejoice in here at the feast. Can you imagine taking dirt and water and making, pears, plums, peaches, bananas, vegetables in the garden, tomatoes, everything He makes from dirt and water? What if He had stopped short and just made dirt and water? Can you imagine what it would be like if He says, "I want you to come to my feast, and you can have all the dirt and water that you want"? How many people would be thrilled at that? Well, you see, God does everything for his children. Making dirt and water and stopping there might be something Satan would try to foist off upon us, but not our God. From this source, he also makes all the beautiful flowers. Now, how does he make red, orange, pink, all these different colors that you see in flowers? We plant a lot of flowers at home, and I just marvel at every one and all the little intricacies there in the heart of the flower. Be a red flower and have a little yellow circle in the middle. Absolutely beautiful. You know, we're very familiar with other things that God does for us. The incredible spiritual gifts that he gives us. He gives us his laws to live by. His truth sets us free. It sets us free because now, once we have that truth, we know why we're here. The world doesn't know why. The people in the world do not know why they are here. And that's sad. Talk about somewhere near 8 billion people, and a small group, tiny small group, are the only ones that truly know why they're here. You know, he wants us always to be with him and him with us. This is why he wants us to keep the Sabbath, the holy days, and especially the Feast of Tabernacles, which we all rejoice in. How could we not love a God like this with all our might and with all our mind? The second commandment is to love your neighbor as yourself. Our neighbor is anyone besides ourselves, you see, whether it's in our family or outside of our family. If we have a family with us, here it's a good time to focus on loving that family. So let's set aside some quality time to be with our husband or our wife. You know, my wife and I often think back to a time many years ago when we were attending the feast, and we went to Cypress Gardens, and it rained the whole time we were there. But you know what? We were under an umbrella, and it was pretty cozy under there. And we were going around looking at Cypress Gardens from under an umbrella. And we came to this little ice cream shop and stopped in there and had a nice big dish of ice cream. And then it cleared out and we were able to see the show without the rain. But we often think about that, and that's a special memory. So we need to set aside some time to do something special. And sometimes even the smallest things seem special when we look back upon them. You know, we need to let each member of the family know that you love them. If you have little children, we're talking about Children's Day today, and the choir will be singing here, and I love little children. They are so cute in so many ways. So if you have little children, take some time to romp with them. They literally love it when adults romp with them. I know our kids, when they were growing up, I would give them a horsey ride up to bed, and then I'd throw them onto bed and tickle the daylights out of them. And they would fall asleep still with a smile on their face. And those are great times. You know, when a little child laughs, we all laugh. And it's really great to be able to see that. What about your older children? Let them each express their thoughts and encourage them to express their dreams. And don't discourage them because, you know, their dream may seem silly at times. but they may also amount to something really great in the future if they follow those dreams. Well, brethren, everyone here is in our spiritual family, so we need to be happy and positive and cheerful. And we need to look for those that we can help have a better feast, someone we can buy a meal for, or just someone that they can talk to. If they're here all alone, they need someone to talk to and discuss things with. So we can do little things to help each other in these ways. When you look out at this audience, these and those who are watching on the webcast, they are going to be our brothers and sisters, not just here at the feast, not just home in your local congregations, but forever throughout all eternity. Can you think of that? This is a beautiful group here. And there's a beautiful group meeting all around the world that we hear their messages and understand that they are loving God, they are loving their neighbor just the same as we are trying to do here. So these are going to be our brothers and sisters forever. And over all of us, we have a loving God who wants to be with us at all times. How can it get any better than that? Brethren, the feast is a time to love. Soon enough, we'll go home and see all the sins that we have hated, that we see on the news, of people being mistreated everywhere around the world. The feast is a time to love, and the more we love, the better feast we will give, and the more we give, the better feast we will have. So always remember, the feast is a time to love.